joining us today because I had a conversation with her. I can start that for you if you want to just make some notes.
That was stressful.
I know. Myra's here today because I had a conversation with Myra yesterday, and Myra is a therapist and she's also a life coach, and she deals a lot with overwhelm and stress. She's also the mother of a beautiful 2-year-old daughter, Sequoia.
Okay, that's a whole nother element of stress in your life. Those little ones run fast. And they want what they want when they want it.
Right now, they're very impulsive, very demanding.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a handful. It's a handful being an entrepreneur and having a 2-year-old. And really, both of those things came into, like, my daughter was born at the same time that my business was. So it was kind of like having 2 kids, as you guys know, being entrepreneurs.
Well, and she said something yesterday on the phone, which I thought we talk about all the time. She birthed a child and a business.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, you know, we had this theory 8 years ago when we first started working together, that women, once they become pregnant or they become a mom, they have an inherent creative power.
I love
that. You can, what's my line? I said, you can grow a baby in 40 weeks even while you're sleeping. Imagine what you could do with your own life while you're awake. Well, and did you hear that?
I think she said you were brilliant.
She said I was brilliant.
No, I'm serious. When women when women have kids, we learn to tap into a creative power that's always there for us. And I think that is the reason why I have been so engaged, not only in parenting, but also in business. And it's also been, while there's been highs, there's also been lows. And you guys have been talking a lot about stress today, I think. And
yes.
There's so much to be said about that, and how women are containers for everything that comes into the house. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom or you're an entrepreneur or you're doing all of those things, when your kids come home, when your husbands come home, when you have to do everything that you have to manage, you're the containers and you have to hold all of that. That is your role.
Holding all of it, I think, is so. I think it's a beautiful way to put
right
it.
Here.
We hold it around our midline. Well, yesterday Mary was laying down on the bench here at the house, and she was like breathing deeply because what got caught up into your diaphragm?
When I don't breathe, you know, your diaphragm. If you're not breathing a belly breath and you're breathing chest breathing, it can literally take your diaphragm and pull it up underneath your rib cage, and it hurts. And so I first learned how to relax, take a deep breath, and then just push it back down. And you know what's another thing? I have so many women in my life as, you know, friends, and they're all suffering the stress is starting to manifest in, like, anxiety. Do you run into that with your patients or your clients?
All the time.
See, it's just...
What are they telling you?
So a lot of my clients, actually, what happens, not only do they experience anxiety, overwhelm, stress, lack of productivity, inability to focus, low sex drive, craving. Food cravings is actually one of the big symptoms of overwhelm and stress.
Hence the cookies.
Right.
We're making cookies today. Oh my gosh. Okay, just keep going on. Go on.
But they have a lot of physical symptoms, because you're talking about one of the most basic foundations of how you manage stress, which is breathing. Because if you don't breathe, I mean, obviously breath is the life force, but if you don't breathe properly and if you don't learn how to stay in your body when you're stressed, then it just all builds up, and your body actually organizes around that stress physiologically. So it begins to constrict. And when we were talking about that life force, when we're feeling anxious, when we're feeling overwhelmed, everything begins to constrict, not just physiologically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and that cuts off your creative flow. And as moms and entrepreneurs, you need to have that creative flow, and you need to have access to it all the time. Otherwise, you're robbing people of your gifts. I mean, honestly, you guys...
yourself.
Yeah, yourself and your gifts and what you can bring. Exactly.
Right?
Well, because you were talking about your diaphragm getting caught up underneath, and the other night...
Thanks for sharing that, by the way.
I know. Well, you know, we shared on the show before that I had shingles, which presented on my face.
Do you believe that? That's how she manifested her stress, in shingles.
I had shingles. They presented. This was last year, but I had it on my face. And then the other night, I laid down in bed, and the room was spinning. You know, like I felt like I had a couple glasses of wine and tried to lay down, but I hadn't. I think I was just stressed.
Do you think, my theory is that stress that we're holding and constricting is kind of running rampant inside of us, and it throws us off. Like, my girlfriend went to the hospital for a stress test because she was having these surges of energy that were making her lightheaded, and she thought she was going to fall over. And I've experienced that feeling because and she's under tremendous stress right now. She was fine at the hospital. Her oxygen was fine, her stress levels, her EK, all that kind of stuff was fine. But I think mentally she's so out of balance.
You must see it a lot.
You must. I mean, just managing our physical body talks to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and this is such a great segue as to how I really work with clients, because what happens with stress is, and what happens in general when people get overwhelmed, is we start living from the neck up, right? So we're not connecting to our body, we're not listening to our body's needs, we don't know how to be embodied. You know what I mean? Like living in our body, experiencing our bodies, understanding what's happening from an internal place, because all that we're doing is thinking and thinking and thinking. And our mind, it takes us away from the present moment. And as soon as that happens, you lose touch with what's really real and what's really important, and it becomes this sort of, not illusion, but almost like the story of what needs to happen. And so it gets all caught up in your body, but since we're living up here, we don't know how to take care of what's down here. And breathing is where it starts.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do you work a lot with moms in particular? Because you have, I would think, once you're a mom and once you're in the club, you kind of understand. So it's really easy for a mom probably to come to you because you get her. Yeah. You understand. Do you work with a lot of moms in your practice?
Actually, I probably have half of my practice is moms, and then the rest of them are just busy professionals, right?
Sure.
I mean, and one of my backgrounds is in eating disorders. That was one of my specialties. I worked with women and men who struggle with eating disorders and body image disorders.
And that's a whole other show that we'll have to invite you back onto, because that's something that moms deal with. Yeah. We really want to talk about tips on how women who are feeling, if there's a mom at home feeling stressed and overwhelmed, how we can help her out.
Yeah. So stay tuned. This is a very important topic. So glad you're here today.
All right, go to momstown.com and sign up for our newsletter, and we'll be right back with more tips from Myra.